Jennifer sat in her parents' small kitchen, her hands clasped around her coffee mug as her mother spoke anxiously. "You have to sell the house. Emily needs the money for the divorce." She looked at them, feeling more like they were being pressed than talking. "You worked for 12 years to get that house," Jennifer said, her voice shaking. Her father sneered. "What about your family? Your sister is going to lose everything." Jennifer was 33 years old, owned a small coffee shop in Dallas. She had worked 70 hours a week, lived in a cramped apartment, and saved every penny to buy this house. Now her parents were asking her to give it all up, to help Emily, who had been married to Mark, a wealthy businessman, and had lived in luxury for more than a decade. Jennifer took a deep breath, trying to stay calm as her parents pressed her. "Emily is used to living comfortably," her mother pleaded. "I can't let my sister suffer like that." Jennifer almost laughed at the absurdity. "Miserable?" She looked straight at her mother. "You mean leaving the villa with the pool to live in a normal apartment like me?" She realized bitterly that, all these years, her parents had never worried about her working hard, struggling to survive. But as soon as Emily was in trouble, they were willing to force her to sacrifice everything. Jennifer put her coffee cup down on the table, her eyes cold as her father leaned forward, his voice low and calculating. "Jennifer, there's something you need to know," he said. A chill ran down her spine. "We talked to Aunt Margaret about the summer you spent at her house when you were 20. Jennifer felt her heart sink. That summer, she had discovered that Uncle Henry, Aunt Margaret's husband, had embezzled money from the family company. He had begged her to keep it a secret, promising to pay it all back. She had kept quiet, and the money had indeed been returned. But now her parents were using it as blackmail. Jennifer felt her blood run cold. She stared at her parents, searching for remorse in their eyes, but there was none. There was only cold calculation. "If word of this got out to Aunt Margaret's son Mason, how do you think he would react?" her mother said, her voice falsely sweet. Jennifer clenched her fists under the table. Mason was running for city council, and if this got out, it could ruin his career. "Are you two blackmailing me?" she whispered, pain and anger rising in her throat. They were actually willing to destroy her to save Emily. Jennifer took a deep breath, feeling her chest constrict. She looked at her parents, who had used threats to force her to make sacrifices without hesitation. But they had forgotten one thing. She was no longer the weak 20-year-old girl she had been. Jennifer stood up, pulled out her phone, and scrolled through the emails she had collected over the years, evidence of her father's shady dealings. She raised her head, her eyes sharp. "If you two want to play this game, then let me mention the illegal deals you arranged with Mark," she said slowly, watching her father's face pale. The room fell silent. Jennifer's father clenched his fists, but he couldn't hide the panic in his eyes. "I don't know what I'm talking about," he muttered. But his voice had lost its authority. Jennifer calmly scanned the phone screen, then turned it toward him. "What about these emails, the suburban rezoning agreement, the consulting fees Mark paid you to get this all done?" Her mother took a sharp breath, her face paled. "Jennifer, you can't do this," she pleaded. Jennifer smiled faintly. "Then don't make me choose between my family and my freedom." Jennifer shoved the phone into her pocket, her heart pounding but her eyes unwavering. "I've had enough," she said, her voice firm. "You've manipulated me all my life, but this time I'm not backing down." Her mother's eyes welled with tears, but Jennifer no longer felt pity. For years those tears had only fallen when it came to Emily, never her. "If you walk out of here, you'll no longer be our daughter," her father growled, clinging desperately to the power he once held. Jennifer shrugged, grabbing her bag. "I was never really your daughter. I was just a lifeline to this family." Jennifer turned and walked out of the kitchen that she had thought was her home. Behind her, her mother sobbed, and her father slammed his fist on the table in anger, but she didn't stop. As the door closed behind her, she took a deep breath. Her first breath of freedom. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text message from her relatives no doubt, but she ignored it. She had protected what was hers, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel guilty about it. That night, Jennifer stood on her porch, staring at the warm yellow light. This wasn't just a house, this was the life she had built, and no one could take it away. The next few days passed in a steady stream of text messages, missed calls, and gossip from her relatives. Jennifer didn't care. She changed her phone number, blocked emails from her parents and focused on her small shop. For the first time, she felt a strange sense of relief. Her regulars noticed the difference. She smiled more, her voice softer, no longer strained by the burden of family. But the peace didn't last long. A week later, Emily showed up at the shop, her eyes red, clutching her designer handbag. "I had to sell my car," she sobbed, as if it were the greatest tragedy of her life. Jennifer just crossed her arms, silently watching her. Jennifer crossed her arms over her chest, looking at Emily with a calm gaze. "Really?" she asked, her voice devoid of pity. Emily sobbed, wiping her tears but still maintaining her haughty demeanor. "I have to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I can't believe I'm in this situation," Jennifer sighed, shaking her head. "Welcome to the real world, Emily. Millions of people live like this every day." Emily glared, her voice cracking with anger. "This is your fault. If you'd helped me, I wouldn't be suffering like this." Jennifer looked straight into her sister's eyes. "No, Emily. This is because I never learnt to stand on my own 2 feet, and it's time I did that." Emily glared at Jennifer, her lips quivering with anger. "You're so heartless! I'm your sister!" she screamed, but Jennifer just shrugged. "No, Emily, I'm just not your lifeline anymore." Her voice was no longer angry, only the calm of someone who had given up. Emily took a breath, trying to regain her composure. "You can't work. You have no skills." Jennifer raised an eyebrow. "Then learn, like everyone else." In that moment, Jennifer saw the confusion in her sister's eyes. For the first time in her life, Emily understood that no one would bear the consequences for her. "Get out," Jennifer said, her voice firm, "and don't come back." Rumors began to spread in the local business world. Jennifer's father's shady dealings with Mark quickly attracted the attention of investigators. He was soon forced into early retirement to avoid legal trouble. Jennifer's once proud family was in shambles. The finances were in tatters. The funds that had once pampered Emily dried up, forcing her parents to withdraw from lavish parties and prestigious groups. Jennifer's mother tried to keep up appearances, but could not hide the fact that she had to sell her big house and move into a smaller apartment. She complained to relatives about her daughter's betrayal, but no one believed her story anymore. Meanwhile, Emily, with no financial support, struggled with a temporary secretarial job. She had never had to earn her own money, and harsh reality began to sink in. Designer handbags were sold one by one to pay off debts, and fancy dinners were replaced by fast food. Jennifer heard about her family through the gossip of clients and friends. Her father had officially retired early, avoiding the investigation but could not hide his loss of status. Her mother, once proud of her lavish tea parties, had to leave the club she had been a member of for 20 years. And Emily, after selling her last car, reluctantly accepted a job as a receptionist at a small company. Jennifer didn't gloat, but she didn't feel sorry either. She had spent her life bearing the consequences for them, and now they were facing a reality they had ignored. When a relative called, implying that her parents missed their daughter, Jennifer just smiled. They didn't miss her. They missed someone they could use. After years of trying, Jennifer finally made her dream come true. She opened a second store in a popular neighborhood, attracting customers who loved her handmade gifts and unique designs. But more than a business, the new store had a bigger meaning. It became a space for women who wanted to change their lives. Jennifer began hosting small business workshops, helping women like her, women who had been overlooked, manipulated by their families, but still persevered. Every story she heard at those meetings reminded her of the person she used to be. She not only built a brand, but also a community where women learned to stand up and take control of their lives. Every day Jennifer walked into the store with a smile on her face. No more fear, no more invisible burdens, just a bright future where she was the only one in control. Late one afternoon, as Jennifer was checking out the merchandise in her new store, she received a handwritten letter, written on high-quality paper in a familiar handwriting. It was from Aunt Margaret. Jennifer opened the letter, not sure what to expect, but instead of criticism or advice to return to her family, she read something completely different. "Dear Jennifer, I was wrong to stay silent for so long. All these years I turned a blind eye to the way your parents treated you, to the obvious favoritism that everyone saw but no one dared to speak up about. But you were stronger than all of us. You stood up for what was yours, and more importantly, you didn't let anyone take advantage of you anymore. I am proud of you, Jennifer. Not because you have succeeded in your career, but because you have chosen yourself over the expectations imposed upon you. You have proven that resilience is not endless patience, but knowing when to let go. I hope to see you again someday, not in a stressful family gathering, but as two people who truly understand each other. Jennifer put down the letter, feeling indescribable. This was the first time someone in her family had truly acknowledged her efforts, without any demands or responsibilities attached. She smiled softly. Not because she expected any reconciliation, but because finally, someone understood. Over the next few months, Jennifer began to receive signals from her family, calculated attempts at reconciliation. At first it was short messages from her mother. I miss you, how have you been? Then came the missed calls from her father that she didn't answer. Emily, after months of silence, sent a long text message complaining about her difficult life, ending with a hint. We're still sisters, family is important, right? Jennifer didn't respond. She knew these words weren't genuine repentance, just a way to pull her back, to test whether she was still soft-hearted. And when she didn't budge, the family took more drastic action. Her mother suddenly appeared at the store, her face grim and her voice trembling. Your father isn't well, aren't you going to visit him? Jennifer looked at her, calmly replying, He's still well enough to run Emily's finances, right? A blush crossed her mother's face, but she didn't argue. She knew the family hadn't really changed. They hadn't acknowledged their mistakes or tried to understand the pain they'd caused. They just wanted things to go back to the way they were. That is, Jennifer back to her familiar place. The problem solver. The one who sacrificed for others. But Jennifer had changed. She was no longer the obedient daughter who put her family before herself. This time she stood her ground. Everyone else can go on with their lives, and I'm doing the same, in my own way, she said firmly. Her mother's eyes welled up with tears, but Jennifer no longer felt guilty. She had learned that family love could not be a chain. She didn't have to sacrifice to prove she was a good daughter, and if they were really going to heal, it had to come from real change, not empty words. Jennifer stepped out of the store after a long day, took a deep breath, felt the breeze on her skin. She no longer felt the weight on her shoulders. No more pressure calls, no more blame, no more feeling trapped in a vicious cycle of responsibility and guilt. She had feared that moving away from her family would leave her alone, but the opposite was true. She found a life free of manipulation, free of unfair expectations. She had friends who truly appreciated her, customers who loved her shop, and most importantly, she had herself. For the first time, Jennifer realized that cutting ties with a toxic family wasn't selfish, it was liberating. An act of self-love that allowed her to live her life in accordance with her values, instead of sacrificing them for people who never really cared about her. Looking up at the night sky, Jennifer smiled. She had no regrets. This was the life she deserved, a life where she was free, strong, and completely herself. 3 years after her fateful confrontation with her family, Jennifer had built a completely different life, one that was freer, stronger and happier than ever. No more unreasonable pressure, no more blame, no more unfair expectations. Her first store was still thriving, while her second store had become a popular destination for women looking to start their own businesses and find independence. Jennifer had not only found financial success, but also peace of mind. Every day she finds joy in the little things. A quiet morning with her favorite cup of coffee, an inspiring conversation with a client, or simply the freedom of knowing that no one else has control over her life. Her family still tries to reach out occasionally, but Jennifer no longer feels obligated to reciprocate. She understands that family is no excuse for manipulation or self-sacrifice. She has chosen a different path for herself, one in which she is the only one who decides the direction. And she has never felt more free. Every time she walks into her house, Jennifer feels a sense of peace wash over her. The house that her family once tried to force her to sell, once viewed as a throwaway asset to save Emily, now symbolizes everything she has fought to keep: her independence, her self-worth, her right to be in control of her life. She has renovated every corner of the house, no longer letting it bear the mark of her parents' imposed expectations. The walls are repainted to her liking, no longer the neutral color her mother used to force her to choose, to match the family's eyes. The furniture now reflects Jennifer's personality. Strong, modern, but also warm and full of life. Every morning when she wakes up, seeing the sunlight pouring through the window, Jennifer knows she did the right thing. This house is not just a place to live, but a testament to her resilience, to the right choice she has made. She is no longer the one who has to sacrifice, endure, or live for others. She has chosen herself, and that makes her happier than ever. These stories all emphasize an important lesson. Self-worth does not depend on the recognition of family or others, but on knowing how to protect ourselves. We have no obligation to sacrifice for those who do not appreciate us. We should not let family ties become chains that bind us, and we should not let emotional manipulation make us lose what we deserve. Learning to say no to unfair demands, standing firm and not letting anyone take advantage of our kindness is essential. Most importantly, invest in yourself, build an independent life, and do not be afraid to cut off toxic relationships to find true peace. What do you think about these stories? Have you ever experienced a similar situation, or have any lessons learned for yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to follow the channel to watch the next interesting stories about life, family, and valuable lessons.